The sun was still hiding behind the rooftops when a young boy stepped out of a small broken house, made of bricks and tin sheets. He carried a small bag over his shoulder, worn out from years of use, its color faded by dust and sunlight. His slippers made a soft scraping sound on the uneven road as he walked. The air was cool, filled with the smell of early morning tea from a nearby stall. He stopped there as he always did, watching steam rise from a kettle while the vendor poured tea into small glasses. The boy's name was Ayan. He was about 12, thin and short for his age, but his eyes had a strange brightness, like he could see something others didn't. His family didn't have much. His father worked as a mechanic in a small workshop by the main road, and his mother sold homemade snacks at the local school gate. They lived day by day, earning just enough to eat and pay for rent. Life was not easy, but Ayan had learned not to complain. He helped wherever he could, delivering things, running small errands, or sweeping at the nearby shops for a few coins. But there was something about him that made him different from other kids in the neighborhood. He loved sound, not just music but every kind of sound. The whistle of a kettle, the tapping of raindrops on the roof, the rhythm of footsteps on a dusty path, it all made sense to him in a strange way. He could hear patterns in ordinary noises, and sometimes he would tap his fingers on the table, creating small tunes without realizing it. His mother used to smile and say, "You've got restless hands, Ayan. Always making noise." He would grin and answer, "It's not noise, Ami, it's music." Their house was too small for dreams, but Ayan's mind was full of them. Every morning when he went to deliver food boxes for his mother, he passed through the richer part of the town. The difference between his street and theirs was like day and night. There the roads were clean, lined with trees, and the houses were tall and shining. Cars stood in front of big gates, and every window seemed to hide a story. Ayan always slowed down when he walked there. He didn't envy them. He just wondered what it must feel like to live in a place like that, without worrying about rent, without counting coins before buying food. One day, as he was walking down that very street with 2 lunch boxes in his hand, he heard something that made him stop. It was a sound, soft, gentle, and magical. It wasn't coming from the road, but from one of the big houses behind a tall white wall. He stood still, listening. The tune floated through the air, sweet and pure, like a story told in another language. He had never heard anything like it before. His heart beat faster. He wanted to know what it was, who was making that sound. He followed it until he reached the gate of the house. Through the half-open door he could see a big hall filled with light. People were standing around, dressed neatly, holding cups and talking softly. In the center of the hall was a shining black instrument, something Ayan had only seen once in a music shop window. A piano. The person playing it was a young girl, maybe his age, sitting gracefully with her fingers moving quickly across the keys. The music rose and fell like waves in the sea. Every note seemed to fill the air with emotion. Ayan forgot where he was. He stood there holding the lunchboxes tightly, his eyes wide, completely lost in the sound. The guard standing by the gate noticed him and frowned. "Hey, what are you doing here?" the man asked, walking over. Ayan quickly lowered his head. "I came to deliver food, sir," he said softly. "For who?" the guard asked, still suspicious. Ayan pointed to the box and said, "For the cook. My mother sent me." The guard sighed and waved him in. "Go quickly and don't wander around. This isn't a place for staring." Ayan nodded and hurried through the side door into the kitchen, but as soon as he handed the food box to the cook, he couldn't resist walking back toward the hall. The music was still going on, and he felt something pulling him closer. He peeked again from behind a pillar. The girl's fingers danced on the piano keys, creating magic. When she stopped, the people clapped, smiling proudly. A man, tall and well-dressed, walked over to her and patted her shoulder. "Beautiful, my dear," he said. "You're getting better every day." The girl smiled shyly. Ayan's heart ached a little. He had never touched such an instrument. In his world, music came from radios and tea shops or from the old flute a man played on the corner of the street. But here, music came from a piece of art that looked like a dream. When the guests started talking among themselves, the piano was left alone for a while. Ayan's eyes stayed on it. His fingers twitched slightly as if they wanted to feel those keys just once. He knew he shouldn't, but curiosity was stronger than fear. Slowly, he stepped closer. Each step felt like it echoed in his chest. He reached the piano and stared at it, the smooth black surface, the white and black keys shining under the light. His hand shook as he raised it. He gently pressed one key. The note that came out was soft, pure, and bright. It rang in his ears, then faded into silence. But in that 1 second, something stirred deep inside him. It was like his whole world had changed. He pressed another key, this time a little harder. The sound was different, lower, warmer. He smiled without realizing it. For the first time in his life, he felt connected to something bigger than himself. Just then, a voice behind him broke the moment. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" Ayan froze. He turned slowly and saw two young boys standing there, wearing clean clothes and shiny shoes. One of them laughed and said loudly, "Look at this! The delivery boy thinks he's a musician." The other joined in, "Careful or he'll break it." Maybe he's never seen a piano before. Ayan's face turned red. He wanted to say sorry, but the words got stuck in his throat. He stepped back quickly, his eyes lowered. The sound of laughter echoed in the hall. A few of the guests turned to see what was happening. Ayan could feel their stares, heavy and cold. "What's going on here?" asked the tall man, the same one who had praised his daughter a few minutes ago. One of the boys spoke up eagerly. "Sir, this boy touched your piano." The man frowned and looked at Ayan. "Is that true?" Ayan swallowed hard and nodded. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to hear the sound." The man shook his head, half angry, half annoyed. "Do you think this is a toy? That piano costs more than what your family makes in a year. You shouldn't be here." The laughter came again, softer but crueler this time. Ayan wished the ground would swallow him. He felt his chest tighten. He took a step back, holding his small bag against his chest. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "It won't happen again." The man waved his hand dismissively. "Just go. Next time, don't bring your curiosity into other people's houses." Ayan turned and walked out as fast as he could. He didn't look back. His face burned with shame and his throat hurt from holding in tears. When he reached the gate, the guard looked at him curiously but said nothing. Ayan kept walking, the laughter still ringing in his ears. Outside, the sunlight was brighter now. The world moved on like nothing had happened, but inside him, everything felt heavy. He walked faster, past the neat gardens, the shining cars, and the children playing with expensive toys. When he reached the end of the street, the roads turned rough again, full of dust and noise. He finally slowed down, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. He didn't tell his mother what had happened that day. When she asked if he delivered the food, he only nodded and said, "Yes, Ami, everything's fine." She smiled, tired from standing all day, and handed him a small piece of bread. "Here, eat this before it gets cold." That night, when everyone was asleep, Ayan sat outside under the stars. He kept thinking about the piano, the way it looked, the way it sounded, the way it made him feel. He placed his fingers on his knees, pretending they were keys, and began tapping softly. He closed his eyes, replaying that one note over and over in his mind. The humiliation still hurt, but under it something else was growing. A small fire of determination. He whispered to himself, "One day, I'll play it properly. One day they'll see." A soft wind blew through the street, carrying the distant sound of someone playing music on a radio. Ayan smiled faintly. He didn't know how or when, but he knew deep down that this was not the end of his story. It was just the beginning. The next morning, when he woke up, he didn't feel sad anymore. Instead, he felt curious again. As he helped his mother prepare food, his fingers tapped against the counter in rhythm with the sizzling oil. His mother looked at him and said, "You're at it again." He laughed. "I can't help it, Ami, it just happens." He didn't know that somewhere far ahead, his small habit of tapping and listening to sounds would one day change his entire life. But for now, he was just a poor boy with a big dream, walking the same road every day, carrying the same small bag, and keeping one note alive in his heart, the sound of the first piano key he ever touched. The morning after that embarrassing day, Ayan woke up earlier than usual. The sound of roosters echoed through the small streets and smoke rose from kitchen fires as people started their day. His mother was already awake, kneading dough on a wooden board. The smell of frying bread filled the air, but Ayan's thoughts were still trapped in what had happened the day before. The laughter, the voices, the man's cold words, Dawi, they kept coming back to him again and again. He tried to brush it off and act normal. He washed his face with cold water, brushed his teeth with a small piece of charcoal, and helped his mother pack the lunchboxes. She noticed his silence but didn't ask questions. "You'll deliver to the same house again today," she said softly, tying a scarf around the food containers. They liked the food. Ian froze for a moment. His heart skipped a beat. The same house? The one with the piano? He wanted to say no. He didn't want to face those people again, not after what had happened. But he also knew that refusing would mean disappointing his mother. So he nodded slowly and said, "Okay, Ami." He left home with the same old bag, his slippers making soft sounds on the ground. The air was fresh, but his stomach felt heavy. He walked through the noisy market and then onto the quiet, clean streets of the rich neighborhood. Every time he passed the tall gates, he remembered how small he had felt the day before. When he reached the house, he stood outside for a few seconds before ringing the bell. The same guard opened the gate. The man recognized him and raised an eyebrow. "You again?" he said in a rough voice. Ian nodded. "Yes, sir. My mother sent me with lunch." The guard sighed. "All right, go to the kitchen. But don't wander, understood?" "Yes, sir," Ian replied quietly. He went inside quickly and dropped the food box with the cook. He was about to leave when he heard it again, the sound of music. It wasn't as lively as yesterday. It was slower, softer, like someone was practicing. He turned his head and saw through the open door that the same girl was sitting at the piano. This time she looked frustrated. She pressed the keys, then stopped, then tried again. Her teacher, an old man with white hair, stood beside her, watching patiently. Ian forgot his fear for a moment and listened. The tune was beautiful but uneven, as if the notes were slipping away. The teacher sighed and said gently, "Don't rush nor feel the music. Don't just play it." She nodded, trying again, but it still didn't sound right. The teacher shook his head, smiling kindly. "Close your eyes," he said. "Don't think of the notes. Think of how it should feel." Ian's eyes sparkled as he watched. He could tell where she was struggling, where the tune didn't flow. He had heard this melody yesterday. He whispered the rhythm softly to himself, tapping his fingers against his leg without realizing it. The teacher turned and caught sight of him standing near the kitchen door. For a second, Ian panicked, thinking he would get scolded again, but the old man didn't look angry. He tilted his head slightly and said, "Come here, boy." Ian froze. The cook gave him a warning look, but the teacher smiled gently and repeated, "It's all right, come." Slowly, Ian walked forward, his heart pounding. He stood near the piano, not daring to look directly at the girl or the teacher. "What's your name?" the teacher asked. "Ian," he said softly. "You were here yesterday, weren't you?" Ian nodded, embarrassed. "Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I touched the piano." "I shouldn't have," the old man chuckled softly. "You like music?" Ian hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, sir. Very much." The teacher looked at him with kind eyes. "Do you know what this tune is?" Ian nodded again. "I heard it yesterday. It's beautiful, but—" He stopped, unsure if he should say more. "But what?" the teacher asked with curiosity. "It doesn't sound the same today," Ian said carefully. "Yesterday it felt like a story. Today it sounds like someone is chasing the notes." The girl looked up, surprised. The teacher laughed softly. "You hear that, Noor? The boy understands what I'm trying to say." The girl blushed slightly and looked away. The teacher turned back to Ian. "Can you show me what you mean?" Ian's eyes widened. "Me? I don't know how to play." "Just try," the teacher said kindly. "Don't think of right or wrong. Just play what you feel." Ian looked around nervously. The memory of yesterday's laughter came back to him. But the teacher's eyes were gentle, and there was no one else in the room except him and the girl. Slowly, Ian stepped forward. His hands trembled as he touched the keys. He pressed one, then another. The sound filled the air softly. Then, without knowing how, he began to play. Not a song he knew, but something that came from inside him. It started small, like a whisper, then grew into something beautiful. His fingers moved uncertainly, but with feeling. Each note carried a bit of his story. The dusty streets, the sound of rain on tin roofs, his mother's tired smile, the laughter that hurt, but didn't break him. The melody was raw but full of life. When he stopped, the room was silent. The girl stared at him, her eyes wide. The teacher smiled warmly and said, "You have something rare, Ian. You play with your heart, not your head." Ian's hands shook. Played what I felt, sir. That's what music is, the teacher said softly. Feeling. You can learn the rules later. But if you have emotion, you already have half the gift. Ayan didn't know what to say. His heart raced, but it wasn't from fear anymore. It was from excitement. Someone had finally seen him not as a poor delivery boy, but as someone who could create something beautiful. The teacher turned to the girl. You see, Noor, this is what I mean. Don't just memorize. Feel it, she nodded quietly. I understand, sir. The teacher looked back at Ayan. Do you come here often? Ayan shook his head. Only when my mother sends food. The teacher smiled. Then I hope she sends it often. Ayan smiled shyly, still unable to believe what just happened. He stepped back and said softly, Thank you, sir. As he walked out, he felt lighter, like the air itself had changed. For the rest of the day, he couldn't stop thinking about the piano. He replayed every note in his head while helping his mother. That night, as he lay in bed, he tapped the rhythm softly on his pillow until he fell asleep. The next week, he went back to the same house again. This time the guard didn't stop him. The cook smiled when he entered, as if he already knew where Ayan's eyes would wander. He delivered the food, then quietly looked toward the hall. The piano stood there again, and the girl was practicing with her teacher. When the teacher noticed him, he smiled and waved him in. Ah, Ayan. Just in time. Come listen. Ayan hesitated, then stepped inside. Noor was playing the same tune, but now it sounded smoother, gentler. She was improving. When she finished, the teacher nodded with approval. Better, he said. What do you think, Ayan? Ayan smiled shyly. It sounded happy today. The girl looked at him and smiled for the first time. Thank you, she said softly. The teacher turned to Ayan again. Would you like to learn how to play properly? Ayan froze. Learn, me? Why not? The teacher said. You already have the heart for it. Ayan lowered his head. But I can't afford it, sir. I can't even buy food sometimes. The teacher's smile faded into something thoughtful. We'll see. Sometimes talent deserves a chance, no matter where it's born. That day before leaving, Ayan played again. Just a short piece. The teacher guided him on how to sit, how to hold his hands, how to press the keys gently. It felt like a dream. For a boy who grew up in noise and struggle, this quiet room full of melody felt like another world. Every time he went back to deliver food, the teacher taught him a little more. A few notes, a small exercise, a simple tune. Noor watched him curiously. At first she was shy, but soon she started talking to him about music. She realized that though Ayan didn't know how to read notes, he could repeat melodies just by hearing them once. Weeks passed like that. Ayan would help his mother in the morning, deliver food, learn a few notes at the mansion, and then come home to practice on a makeshift piano he made from cardboard and bottle caps. He couldn't hear real notes at home, but he remembered every sound in his head. One evening, the teacher said to Mr. Khan, the owner of the house, Your daughter is improving well, but there's something I must tell you. Mr. Khan looked up from his newspaper. Yes, what is it? There's a boy, the one who brings your lunch deliveries. He has a natural gift for music. Mr. Khan frowned slightly. That poor boy? Yes, said the teacher calmly. He feels music in ways most trained people never do. I think he deserves a chance to learn properly. Mr. Khan didn't respond right away. He looked toward the hall where Ayan was quietly wiping his hands before leaving. There was hesitation in his eyes, but also curiosity. I'll think about it, he finally said. That night, Ayan didn't know that his life was already starting to change. The sound of the piano had become a part of him now, something he couldn't imagine living without. He didn't know where it would take him, but for the first time in his life he felt hope, the kind that makes even the poorest heart feel rich. Days kept passing, and Ayan's visits to the big house became a routine. What started as a simple food delivery had quietly turned into something much more. Each time he came, he would spend a few minutes learning new notes from the old music teacher, while the girl Noor practiced beside him. The teacher would gently guide them both, correcting their fingers, showing them how to breathe with the music and teaching them to listen with their hearts. Ayan's confidence slowly grew. His fingers became more comfortable on the keys and his fear of making mistakes began to fade. But outside that small circle of three, no one really knew what was happening. To everyone else, Ayan was still just a delivery boy, a poor kid who brought lunchboxes from the other side of the city. One afternoon, As he was leaving the mansion after his short lesson, he heard laughter coming from the garden. When he looked, he saw two boys, the same ones who had mocked him the first day he touched the piano. They were sitting under a tree, eating fruits and talking loudly. As soon as they saw Ayan, one of them smirked and said, "Look who's here, the little pianist." The other one laughed. "Maybe he's come to give another free concert." Ayan lowered his head and tried to walk past them quietly, but one of the boys stood in his way. "Hey, show us your magic fingers again," he said, mocking him. "Play something for us, street boy." Ayan stayed silent, holding the empty lunch bag in his hand. The laughter stung, but he didn't reply. The boy pushed his shoulder lightly. "What happened? Cat got your tongue?" Before things could get worse, Noor came running from the other side of the garden. "Stop it!" she shouted. "Leave him alone." The boys looked surprised. "We're just having fun," one of them said carelessly. "It's not funny," Noor said firmly. "Go inside, now." The two boys hesitated for a second, then walked away, still laughing. When they were gone, Noor turned to Ayan. "Are you okay?" He nodded slowly. "Yes," she looked embarrassed. "They're my cousins. They don't understand." "It's fine," Ayan said softly. "I'm used to it," but deep inside it wasn't fine. The memory of their laughter brought back the same pain he had felt on that first day. Even though he was learning, even though the teacher believed in him, the world outside still saw him as someone who didn't belong. That night, Ayan sat outside his small house again, under the same dim streetlight. He placed a few wooden pieces on the ground, pretending they were piano keys. His fingers moved silently as he remembered everything the teacher had taught him. He could hear the sounds clearly in his mind, even though there was no real piano in front of him. His mother came out with a plate of food. "Ayan," she said softly, "you haven't eaten yet." He looked up and smiled faintly. "I will, Ami, just a minute." She watched him for a while. "You really love that music, don't you?" He nodded. "Yes, I don't know why, but when I play I feel free. Like I'm somewhere else where no one laughs at me." His mother sat beside him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then don't stop. People will always talk, but you don't let them decide who you are." He looked at her and smiled. She was tired, her hands rough from work, but her eyes were full of warmth. "One day," he said softly, "I'll buy you a big house, and I'll play real music there just for you." She smiled gently, brushing his hair back. "I don't need a big house. Just seeing you happy is enough." A few days later, the teacher told Ayan that Mr. Khan, the owner of the house, wanted to see him. When Ayan heard that, his stomach twisted in fear. He still remembered the day Mr. Khan had scolded him for touching the piano. What if he was angry again? The teacher smiled reassuringly. "Don't worry. Just be yourself." Ayan followed him to the main sitting room where Mr. Khan sat reading some papers. He looked up when they entered. "So you're the boy my teacher keeps talking about," he said, setting his glasses down. Ayan bowed his head respectfully. "Yes, sir." Mr. Khan studied him for a moment. "You like music?" "Yes, sir," Ayan said softly. "Very much." The old man leaned back in his chair. "My teacher says you have talent, but talent without discipline means nothing. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir," Ayan said again. Mr. Khan nodded slowly. "Good. From now on, you may practice here for 1 hour each day after you deliver food. My teacher will guide you. But remember, this opportunity is a gift. Don't take it for granted." Ayan's eyes widened. "Thank you, sir. I won't." Mr. Khan waved his hand slightly. "All right then. Let's see if music can make something of you." When Ayan walked out of the room, his heart felt lighter than ever before. He couldn't wait to tell his mother. That evening, he ran home faster than usual. As soon as he reached the door, he burst out, "Ami! They said I can learn properly now." "Every day." His mother stopped cutting vegetables and stared at him. "What, really?" "Yes," he said excitedly. "The owner said I can practice there every day with the teacher. He said it's a gift." Her eyes softened and she hugged him tightly. "You see? I told you. Good things happen to those who don't give up." From that day, Ayan's life began to change in small but meaningful ways. Every afternoon, after helping his mother, he would head to the mansion, wash his hands carefully, and sit at the piano. The teacher would give him simple exercises, teaching him to control his fingers, to listen closely, and to play softly or loudly depending on what the music wanted to say. Sometimes, he made mistakes and his frustration showed, but the teacher never raised his voice. Music is like life, he would say. You fall, you try again. Each mistake teaches you something. Noor often practiced beside him. They became quiet friends, sharing small smiles during lessons. She would sometimes hand him sheets of music, explaining what the notes meant. He couldn't read them yet, but he listened carefully, memorizing every tune by ear. One evening, as the sun set behind the trees, the teacher said, "I think it's time you played something in front of others, Ayan." Ayan's heart skipped a beat. "In front of others?" "I'm not ready, sir," the teacher smiled. "You'll never feel ready until you try. Mr. Khan is hosting a small gathering next week. His friends and family will be there. I want you to play something simple, just a few minutes." Ayan felt both excited and terrified. The memory of the guests laughing at him still haunted him. "What if I make mistakes?" The teacher patted his shoulder. "Then you make mistakes, but you'll still have done something most people never have the courage to do." For the next few days, Ayan practiced more than ever. He stayed late after lessons, repeating the same tune until it sounded right. Noor often stayed to help him. Sometimes she'd say, "Slow down. You're trying too hard," and then show him how to relax his fingers. The day of the gathering finally came. The mansion was decorated beautifully. Cars arrived one after another, and the house filled with guests dressed in fine clothes. The smell of food and flowers mixed in the air. Ayan stood quietly in a corner, his hands cold and his heart racing. He wore his cleanest shirt, still old and faded but neatly pressed by his mother that morning. The teacher came over and said softly, "Breathe, Ayan. Don't think of the people. Think of the sound." Ayan nodded nervously. He waited behind the curtain while Noor played first. Her tune was elegant and calm, and everyone clapped politely. Then the teacher stood up and announced, "Now we have someone special, a young boy who found music not in comfort but in struggle. Please welcome Ayan." A hush fell over the room. Ayan stepped forward slowly. He could feel dozens of eyes watching him. Some people whispered to each other, surprised to see a boy from the slums standing near the piano. He took a deep breath and sat down. For a second, he couldn't move. His fingers hovered above the keys, trembling. Then he remembered his mother's words, "Don't let them decide who you are." He pressed the first key. The note echoed softly, clear and warm. Then another and another. Slowly, the melody took shape, the one he had practiced for days. It was simple but filled with emotion. As he played, his nervousness melted away. He could feel every sound, every breath of the room. People stopped whispering. The laughter faded. The only thing left was the music. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. It came from his heart, from his struggles, from everything he had been through. When he finished, there was silence for a moment. Then someone began to clap. Another joined, then another. Soon the whole room was applauding. Ayan looked up, unsure what to do. His teacher smiled proudly. Noor clapped the loudest. Even Mr. Khan was nodding slowly, his expression soft. After the performance, several guests came to speak to him. Some complimented his playing, others asked who he was. Mr. Khan told them briefly, "He's the son of a hard-working woman who delivers our lunch." That night, when Ayan walked home, he couldn't stop smiling. The stars above looked brighter than ever. When he reached home, his mother was waiting at the door. She didn't need to ask how it went. She could see it on his face. He hugged her tightly and whispered, "They clapped for me, Ami. They really clapped." She laughed softly, holding him close. "See, I told you. You were meant for this." Ayan looked at the sky, his heart full. He knew he still had a long way to go, but now for the first time he believed that anything was possible, even for a poor boy who once touched a piano by mistake. After the night of the gathering, Ayan's world started to feel different. Every morning when he woke up, he could still hear the echo of the applause in his ears. He remembered every sound, every smile, every clap that made him believe, maybe for the first time, that he truly belonged somewhere. The next day when he went to deliver food at the mansion, the guards greeted him with small smiles instead of ignoring him like before. Even the housemaids looked at him differently. It was as if one short performance had quietly changed how people saw him, but Ayan didn't let it go to his head. He still carried the food carefully, still greeted everyone politely, and still cleaned his hands before touching the piano. The teacher looked proud every time Ayan came to practice. "See what happens when you trust yourself," he said. "The world listens when your heart speaks the truth." Ayan smiled, though he still couldn't fully believe it. Inside, he felt both happy and scared. Happy that people had liked his music, but scared that maybe it was just luck. What if he couldn't play that well again? What if people stopped believing in him? Noor noticed his silence one day during practice. "Why do you look so serious lately?" she asked. Ayan looked down at the keys. "What if that night was the only time I played well? What if I can't do it again?" She smiled softly. "You will. Music doesn't leave you once it finds you." He looked up, surprised. "How do you know?" "Because I used to feel the same," she said. "The first time I played in front of others, I thought it was luck too. But it wasn't. It was practice, patience, and love for what I do." Her words stayed in his mind long after she left that day. That night, while others slept, Ayan sat outside his small house again with his imaginary piano made of wooden pieces. His mother had gone to bed early after a long day at work, but Ayan stayed up, tapping the air softly, replaying each tune in his head. He didn't have a real instrument at home, but that didn't stop him. He practiced with his imagination using memory and rhythm. Sometimes he hummed quietly, pretending each note had a story to tell. A few weeks later, the teacher gave him a surprise. "Ayan," he said one morning, "there's a small music competition happening in the city. It's open to students from different schools. I want you to play there." Ayan's heart skipped a beat. "A competition, me?" "Yes," the teacher said calmly. "It's time you see how far you've come." "But sir," Ayan hesitated, "those kids will have real teachers, real pianos at home." "I only learned for a few months," the teacher smiled. "True, but what you have can't be taught by any book. Heart. And that's what music really needs." Ayan didn't know what to say. The idea of playing in front of strangers scared him more than anything. But at the same time, something inside him whispered that maybe this was another chance, one he couldn't ignore. That evening, he told his mother about the competition. She looked both nervous and proud. "Ayan, are you sure?" she asked. He nodded. "Yes, my teacher thinks I can do it." She smiled and touched his face gently. "Then do it, my son. Don't think of what others have. Just think of what you've learned." For the next 2 weeks, Ayan practiced harder than ever. He arrived early and stayed late. Sometimes Noor joined him, helping him perfect difficult parts. The teacher guided him patiently, correcting every small mistake. But as the competition day got closer, Ayan's fear also grew. The thought of standing on a stage with so many people watching made his stomach twist. The night before the event, he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the last time people had laughed at him, the day he first touched the piano by accident. What if it happened again? He went outside and looked at the stars. The air was cool and the street was quiet. His mother came out with a shawl and wrapped it around him. "You'll do fine," she said softly. He looked at her and whispered, "What if I forget everything?" "Then start again," she said. "Music doesn't live in your memory, it lives in your heart. As long as that beats, you'll remember." The next morning, Ayan and his teacher reached the auditorium. The place was huge, filled with polished wooden seats and shining lights. Dozens of children stood around with their instruments, dressed neatly in uniforms. Ayan looked down at his own simple clothes and felt small again, but the teacher placed a hand on his shoulder. "Don't look at their clothes," he said quietly. "Look at your hands. That's where your story is." When it was finally his turn, Ayan walked up to the stage. The hall felt too big, the piano too grand. His palms were sweaty and his heart raced faster than ever. He sat down, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, like a whisper, he remembered his mother's words. He began to play. At first, his fingers trembled. But soon the melody took over. It was a piece he had written himself, something simple yet filled with emotion. The music flowed gently like a quiet river, carrying his fears away. Every note he played told a part of his life. The struggle, the laughter, the hope. The people in the hall grew silent, watching the boy who played with his eyes closed and his heart wide open. When the last note ended, there was a stillness. Then the hall erupted in applause. Ayan opened his eyes, unsure what had just happened. The judges were smiling, and even some of the other students looked amazed. His teacher clapped proudly from the front row. Noor, who had come with her family, smiled brightly from the side. Ayan stood, bowed slightly, and walked off the stage. His legs felt weak, but his heart was stronger than ever. When the results were announced, Ayan didn't win first place. He didn't even win second, but he received a special award. for outstanding expression and emotion in performance. The teacher smiled when he saw Ayan's face fall slightly. Don't look at numbers, he said. Look at what they wrote. They saw your heart. That's bigger than any trophy. When they reached home that evening, Ayan's mother was waiting outside. He showed her the small certificate with shy pride. She read the words and tears filled her eyes. I told you, she said softly. You were meant for this. That night, Ayan placed the certificate beside his bed and stared at it for a long time. He didn't sleep easily, not because he was sad, but because his mind was filled with dreams. He imagined playing on a big stage one day, maybe even traveling to places he'd never seen. The next few months were full of small changes. Mr. Khan had heard about Ayan's performance and called him one day. You made us proud, he said. From now on, the piano room will always be open for you. And I'll see to it that your lessons continue. Ayan could hardly believe his ears. He thanked him again and again. Life at the mansion became like a second home. The teacher continued to train him, pushing him gently toward more complex music. One afternoon, Noor brought a small sheet of music to him. This one's difficult, she said with a grin. I bet you can't play it. He laughed softly. We'll see, he tried. His fingers stumbled, but she clapped anyway. See? You'll get it soon. They often practiced together, sometimes laughing, sometimes arguing about which part sounded better. The teacher watched them fondly as if he already saw something great in their friendship and in Ayan's growing confidence. But life, as always, had its own plans. One evening, when Ayan reached home, he found his mother sitting quietly outside, her face pale. Ami? He asked quickly. What happened? She smiled faintly. Nothing serious, just feeling a bit tired today. But her tiredness didn't go away. In the days that followed, she became weaker. The doctor who visited their small home said she needed rest and better food, maybe even hospital care. Ayan's heart sank. He wanted to help, but they didn't have enough money. For the first time, the piano didn't sound joyful to him. He still practiced, but his mind was somewhere else, with his mother. He played softer, slower, each note carrying a bit of his worry. The teacher noticed. Your heart is heavy, he said one day. Something's troubling you. Ayan hesitated, then told him everything. The old man nodded slowly. Your mother gave you strength. Now it's your turn to give her peace, but how? Ayan asked, his voice breaking. Through your music, the teacher said gently. Sometimes the best medicine for a heart is hope. That night, Ayan played for his mother at home. She lay on her bed, listening quietly as he hummed and tapped his fingers on the wooden table. The tune was soft, full of love and comfort. When he finished, she smiled weakly. That was beautiful, she whispered. You've grown so much, my son. He held her hand tightly. I'll take care of you, Ami, I promise. She nodded, her eyes full of warmth. I know you will. Just don't stop playing no matter what happens. Her words stayed in his heart like a quiet prayer. The days began to blur together after his mother fell sick. Ayan woke up every morning with the same heaviness in his chest. He would check on her before leaving, making sure she had water and her medicine. Then he went to the mansion to practice, but his mind never fully stayed with the music anymore. Every note he played carried a quiet sadness. At home, the air felt heavy. His mother smiled whenever he entered the room, but her face had lost its color. Her voice, once strong and lively, now came out in whispers. Still, she tried to keep things normal. She didn't want him to worry too much. Play something for me, Ayan, she would say softly. It makes the room feel alive. He always obeyed. Even when he was tired, he would tap on the old wooden table beside her bed, turning it into his make-believe piano. The sound was small, but her eyes lit up every time. She'd close them and listen, as if the tiny rhythm carried her somewhere peaceful. One afternoon, when Ayan arrived at the mansion for his lesson, the teacher noticed his dull eyes. You look tired, he said gently. Your heart seems far away today. Ayan hesitated before answering. My mother isn't getting better, he said quietly. The doctor says she needs more care. I wish I could do something, but we don't have enough money. The teacher nodded slowly, his face thoughtful. Music has given you much, hasn't it, he said. Now it's your turn to give through music. Ayan didn't quite understand. What do you mean, sir? There's a charity concert next month, the teacher explained. It's organized to raise funds for families in need. I can ask them to let you perform. If people like your music, maybe they'll help. Ayan's eyes widened. Me? Perform again? Yes, the teacher said. You'll not just play, you'll tell your story through your notes. When people hear truth, they always respond. Ayan thought about it for a long time that evening. He looked at his mother sleeping and felt a strange courage rise inside him. Maybe this was how he could help her. Maybe his music could make a difference, not just for himself, but for her too. From that night onward, he practiced with a new purpose. Every evening after finishing his chores and checking on his mother, he would go to the mansion's piano room. Sometimes Noor joined him, quietly sitting nearby while he practiced. She didn't talk much those days. She knew his heart was heavy. Instead, she watched him play, her eyes full of quiet encouragement. You've changed, she said one night as he finished a piece. You play differently now. He looked at her questioningly. How? It's deeper, she said softly. It feels like your music is crying and healing at the same time. He didn't answer, but her words stayed with him. A week before the concert, Ayan decided to compose something special, something just for his mother. He wanted every note to tell her story, their story, the long journey from struggle to hope. He spent nights humming softly, writing down little pieces on old paper and testing sounds on the piano whenever he could. He called the piece Home. The day of the concert arrived. The auditorium was much bigger than the one from his first competition. Bright lights shone on the stage and hundreds of people filled the seats. Ayan's hands trembled as he waited behind the curtain. He wore a plain white shirt that his mother had washed and pressed the night before, though she was too weak to attend. Noor came up to him backstage and placed a small folded piece of paper in his hand. For luck, she said with a smile. Don't open it now. Read it after. He nodded, trying to smile back. When his name was announced, the crowd clapped politely. He walked to the piano slowly, his heart beating hard. The lights felt too bright, and for a moment he almost forgot to breathe. He closed his eyes and pictured his mother's face, her soft smile. The way she always said his music made her pain lighter. Then he began to play. The first note was low and quiet, like a whisper. It echoed gently across the hall. The next few notes followed, telling a story of humble beginnings, a boy who had nothing but a dream. The melody slowly grew, warm and emotional, painting the picture of love, hardship, and hope. People in the audience leaned forward, listening closely. They didn't know his story, but they could feel it. Every touch of his fingers carried a memory. His father working late into the night, his mother counting coins, his own fear the first time he touched the piano, and the laughter that once mocked him. He played through it all, turning every wound into sound. When he reached the middle of the piece, the tempo changed. It became softer, more fragile. This part was for his mother. Each note was like a word he couldn't say out loud. Please get better. Please stay. The music trembled like a heartbeat. And then, as he reached the end, the melody rose again, bright and strong. It was a sound of hope, of love that refused to fade. The last note hung in the air, shining like a promise before fading into silence. For a few seconds, the hall was completely quiet. Then came the applause, loud, long, and full of emotion. Some people even stood up. Ayan opened his eyes slowly, his vision blurred by tears. He couldn't believe what was happening. He stood, bowed gently, and stepped away from the piano. Backstage, his teacher was waiting with moist eyes. You did it, my boy, he said, placing a hand on his shoulder. That was not just music. That was your soul speaking. Noor hugged him quickly and whispered, I've never heard anything so beautiful. Then she smiled. Now open what I gave you. Ayan unfolded the small piece of paper. It said, when you play, remember who you are doing it for. That will make every note true. He smiled softly, holding it close. After the concert, a few people approached the teacher, asking about Ayan. Some wanted to know more about his background. Others wanted to help. One kind woman from an organization came forward and said, We'd like to donate to the families represented by the performers. That boy's performance touched me deeply. By the end of the evening, enough money had been raised for several families, including Ayan's. His teacher made sure part of it went directly to help his mother's treatment. When Ayan returned home that night, he ran into the house and told her everything. Ami, they listened. They clapped. They said the music was beautiful. His mother smiled weakly. I knew they would, she whispered, because your heart is pure. He held her hand. They're helping us too. You'll get better, Ami. Tears filled her eyes. My boy, she said softly. You've already made me better. For the next few weeks, she slowly began to regain strength. The doctor said her recovery would take time, but she was healing. Ayan continued his lessons with a lighter heart, but something inside him had changed forever. He now understood that music wasn't just a dream. It was a way to touch lives, to heal, to give back. Word of his concert performance spread quietly through the town. People began to talk about the boy from the mechanic's family who played like a miracle. Some even came to the mansion just to hear him practice. Mr. Khan, who had once scolded him for touching the piano, now often sat in the corner of the hall listening silently, his face full of pride. One afternoon, Mr. Khan called Ayan to his study. You've brought great respect to this house, he said, and you've reminded me of something I had forgotten, that talent has no class, no price. It comes from the heart. He paused, then handed Ayan a small envelope. This is a scholarship. It's from a music academy in the city. They heard your performance at the concert and want to train you further. You'll get to learn with professionals. Ayan stared at the envelope in disbelief. A scholarship for me? Yes, Mr. Khan said with a smile. You've earned it. When Ayan told his mother, she cried with joy. See what happens when you follow your gift, she said. This is what you were meant for. A few days later, as Ayan prepared to leave for his first day at the academy, he looked around their small home. The walls, the old chair, the little window, all of it carried the memories of his struggle. He hugged his mother tightly before leaving. I'll make you proud, Ami, he said. She smiled. You already have. The academy was like another world. The halls were wide, filled with instruments of every kind. The teachers there spoke in calm, precise tones, and the students practiced with passion and discipline. At first, Ayan felt out of place again, his simple clothes, his quiet nature. But when he touched the piano, all those fears disappeared. His talent spoke louder than words. The instructors quickly saw something special in him. They said he played with a kind of emotion that couldn't be taught. He wasn't perfect, but every time he performed, people listened. He made friends too. Some curious about his past, some inspired by it. But Ayan never let success change him. He still visited his mother every weekend, still helped her cook when he came home, still played for her before going to bed. One evening, after returning from the academy, he found her sitting outside watching the sunset. Play that song again, she said. The one you played at the concert. He smiled, sat down beside her, and began to hum softly. The melody filled the air once more, wrapping them both in warmth. When he finished, she said quietly, You've turned pain into beauty, my son. That's the gift life gave you. Ayan looked at her and whispered, It's your strength that made me who I am. They sat together in silence as the sky turned orange and gold. For the first time in a long while, everything felt peaceful. That night, before sleeping, Ayan took out the folded paper Noor had given him and read it again. Remember who you are doing it for. He smiled softly and placed it inside a small box beside his mother's Mehdi. The next morning came with a golden sunrise spreading across the sky. The boy woke up early, long before others in the small house had opened their eyes. His mind was still filled with the music from the night before, that moment when he played the piano in front of everyone, and the hall filled with silence and awe. It had felt like a dream, one that still lingered as he sat quietly on the edge of his bed, listening to the faint sounds of the city waking up. He thought about how far he had come, from a boy who swept the floors outside the rich man's mansion to someone who had stood on that grand stage, touching the keys of a real piano under bright lights. But now a small fear tugged at him. What would happen next? Was it all just a lucky moment, or could this really change his life? When he stepped outside, he could still hear people whispering in the street. Some recognized him. Some didn't believe the stories they had heard. That poor boy who played the piano like a magician, they said. Others said it was impossible, that no one could learn such music on their own. But the truth was he had. Not from books or teachers, but from listening, feeling, and dreaming. By noon, a man arrived at the boy's door. He was neatly dressed, wearing a kind smile. The master wants to see you, he said politely. The boy's heart jumped.
The rich man?
The same one whose piano he had touched that day? He nodded, washed his face quickly, and followed the man to the mansion. As he entered the big house again, the air felt different this time. The workers didn't look down on him anymore. Some even smiled at him. He was led into the same grand hall where the piano stood. The rich man sat near it, looking at some papers. When he saw the boy, he put the papers aside and stood up slowly. "I've been thinking about you," the man said with a soft voice. "That night you played something I have not heard in years, not just music, but heart." The boy stood quietly, his hands folded in front of him. The man continued, "I want to help you. If you're willing, I can arrange for you to learn properly, from real teachers with real instruments. You have a gift that should not be wasted." The boy's throat tightened. For a second he couldn't speak. All he managed was a shaky "thank you." That was the beginning of a new chapter in his life. Every morning he would travel across the city to a music school. At first it was hard. The other students came from wealthy families. They had fancy clothes, good shoes, and years of lessons behind them. He had none of that. Some of them whispered behind his back, mocking his old jacket or the way he carried his bag, but he didn't mind. Every time he sat in front of the piano, the world around him disappeared. The keys spoke to him in a way nothing else ever had. His teacher, an elderly musician with kind eyes, noticed something unique about him. "You don't just play the notes," the teacher said once. "You play the silence between them too. That's something very few people understand." Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. He practiced until his fingers hurt, sometimes staying late at the school when everyone else had gone home. The janitor would often find him there, playing quietly under the dim light, lost in the sound. The teacher started to give him pieces that others thought were too difficult, but somehow he found his own way through them. Back home, his family couldn't believe how much things had changed. He still helped his mother with chores, still fixed things around the house, but there was a new kind of light in his eyes. His little sister would often sit beside him, tapping her fingers on the table as if she too could play. One afternoon, while he was walking back from school, a group of boys stopped him. They were older and used to make fun of him before. "So you're the piano boy now," one of them said with a smirk. "Think you're better than us?" He looked at them and shook his head. "No, I'm just doing what I love." They laughed and walked away, but something inside him stayed calm. The old him would have felt hurt, maybe even angry, but now music had taught him something deeper: patience. Months later, his teacher told him about a citywide music competition. "You should enter," he said. "It's not about winning. It's about showing what you can do." The thought of standing on a big stage again made him nervous, but he agreed. For weeks he practiced day and night. The piece he chose wasn't famous, it was something he had created himself. It was simple but full of emotion, a reflection of his life, the struggles, the quiet hopes, the nights when hunger didn't stop him from dreaming. The night of the competition arrived. The hall was filled with people from across the city, musicians, critics, families, and friends. When his turn came, he walked to the stage with trembling hands. For a moment he stood still, taking a deep breath. Then he sat down and touched the keys. The first few notes were soft, almost like a whisper. Slowly the melody grew. It wasn't loud or showy, but it carried something honest, something that spoke to every heart in the room. As he played, he could feel everything he had ever lived through. Every hardship, every little victory, every dream that had kept him going. When he finished, there was silence. Then a long moment later, the hall erupted in applause. Some people stood. Others wiped their eyes. His teacher smiled proudly from the corner of the stage. That night he didn't win first place, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that people remembered him. Some said they had never heard music that felt so alive. A few reporters wrote about him, calling him the boy who played from the heart. A few weeks later, he received a letter. It was from a well-known musician who had been in the audience. The letter invited him to join a music foundation that helped young talents develop their skills. It offered a scholarship, instruments, and a chance to perform in other cities. He read the letter over and over, hardly believing it was real. When he told his mother, tears filled her eyes. "You see?" she said softly. "All those nights you practiced weren't wasted. The journey wasn't always easy after that." The more he learned, the more he realized how vast the world of music was. There were moments of doubt, moments when he felt lost. But he always went back to the reason he started, to express what words couldn't. Years passed and the boy became a young man. His name started appearing in newspapers. not as the poor boy, but as a talented pianist known for his deep emotional style. He performed in halls where once he wouldn't have been allowed to even clean the floor. Yet, despite the fame, he never forgot where he came from. One day he returned to the same neighborhood where it all began. The streets hadn't changed much. Children still played barefoot. Women still chatted outside their doors, and the air was filled with the smell of food cooking. He walked to the small school where he used to stand outside, listening to the old piano through the window. Inside, he found a group of children gathered around a broken keyboard. Their teacher smiled when she saw him. "They've been trying to fix it," she said, "but it doesn't work anymore." He smiled gently and asked if he could try. Sitting down, he pressed a few keys. Most didn't make a sound, but he began to play with what little worked. The children watched, their eyes wide with wonder, as a simple tune filled the room, a tune that didn't need perfection to be beautiful. When he finished, the room was quiet. Then one small boy said, "How did you do that?" "It's broken." He laughed softly and replied, "Sometimes you don't need everything to be perfect. You just need to feel it." Before he left, he arranged for a new piano to be sent to the school. The next time he visited, the children were already learning, their laughter and music echoing through the small hall. As he walked away, he felt something deep inside him, a peace that no applause or fame could match. The journey had started with a single moment of courage, a moment when he dared to touch a piano that wasn't his. From that moment on, life had taken him on a path he never could have imagined. He looked up at the sky, the same sky he had stared at when he was poor and full of dreams, and whispered to himself, "Sometimes, all it takes is one touch to change everything." And in that quiet street, as the sun began to set, his heart filled with gratitude, because he knew what had once been just a dream had become his life, and his music, born from struggle and hope, would keep telling his story long after the final note faded away.